No, the president has no standing under the Constitution to sue the journalist. Even leaving aside freedom of expression and other things, public interest issues and all that, you leave all of that aside. You can come to the president's immunities under Section 69 of the Constitution. As long as he is president, nobody can sue him for civil or criminal offenses. So you cannot file any process against him as far as he's in office, whether that process is civil or criminal. So there is a corollary to that. If the president cannot be tried, can the president drag anybody to court? That cannot be, because if the president takes you to court, you can counterclaim against him. You have a right to do that. If you counterclaim against the president, as far as the immunity provision of the Constitution is concerned, obviously his lawyers can raise a preliminary objection, and more than likely the counterclaim would be struck out. If the counterclaim is struck out, then obviously the president should not be able to sue you, because if he sues you, you have a right to counterclaim against him under the rules. But the immunity principle also dictates that the president is not able to drag people to court, because by doing that, he's putting himself before the courts. And that cannot happen. The immunity that he's given as far as he is president for civil and criminal over civil and criminal issues is a constitutional principle. He didn't give it to himself, so he cannot strip himself of it. Even if he says, "Okay, I don't want immunity," you can do. He cannot do that because the courts will not do that. It will lower the reputation and the prestige of the office of President of the Gambia. Now, that office of President stands apart from His Excellency the President as an individual. They are two separate entities. He is benefiting from the office. That is, if he is granted immunity, then obviously nobody should be able to drag him to court. Just imagine that. It will be a field day for journalists.
Of course.
I mean, you have the president in there, you have the defendant there, and then the judge is sitting, trying to determine the case. That is a spectacle that the country cannot afford. Yeah.
So to people who will say, but Yakumba's case, Yakumba went to court against, was it against the president or the state?
Against the National Assembly.
Against
the clerk of the National Assembly and the Attorney General. Because if you sue any government organ, you have to join the Attorney General as defendant. If you join the Attorney General, then you are joining everybody, the entire government. So in other words, it is that specific entity, the National Assembly, and even there you are just suing the clerk as the administrative head of the National Assembly, and then the Attorney General as the legal representative of the government. So it is the government. It is not against the president, even though it was the president who fired, who wrote that letter through the Secretary General. But Yakumba's case was a little different. That was a constitutional case. The principles there are whether the president can fire a National Assembly member, or by extension, that was not discussed in the case, but a judge of the superior courts. The principle now is certain. The president cannot do either. You cannot fire the judges. You cannot fire members of the National Assembly, even if you are the one who nominated that National Assembly member. You cannot fire her. So
the president in his capacity as president of the Republic cannot sue anybody. But as the party leader of the National People's Party, does that make him a different person? Even though he's the president, but he's also the Secretary General of a political party?
No, he cannot. As long as he remains president, the constitutional provision is clear. Now, whether you are a party leader or whatever, you cannot do it.
Okay.
In fact, he cannot sue in his capacity as president or as the Secretary General of the party. He has to sue. If they want to sue at all, they have to do it in the name of the NPP as a separate entity, which is not the president.
Was it a mere threat, though? Because if the president cannot, in any way, according to our law, sue anybody, why do you think the president's attorneys will write such a letter threatening to sue a media? Was it a threat? And how would that translate? I'll have to come to Madi. It means it's just a threat. Because if he has no standing to sue anybody, that is indirectly a threat, kind of.
It could be, but there is the other possibility that it was a knee-jerk reaction. You didn't think about the constitutional principles at play here. Yes, that is it's a nuanced position. It didn't say the president cannot sue anybody.
Okay.
The provision said nobody can take the president to court,
Okay.
whether civil or criminal. So if it is said that you cannot sue the president cannot sue anybody, then there will be no error. But in this case, I can see how somebody can misunderstand the provision. I don't know what happened, but I don't think the president should be engaged in issuing idle threats. That also diminishes the office of president.